The President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. We would like to hand over to counsels for Nunchi to put questions to this witness. You may now proceed. The President, counsel, please hold on. Judge Lavange, you may now proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I won't be very long. I just have a few questions to put to the witness. Witness, you spoke to us about Tamok. You said that he was born in the same village as you. And if I understood correctly, he was also a monk in the same pagoda as you. Can you tell us a bit what kind of relationship you had with Tamok? Is he someone who was just someone you knew as an acquaintance? Or was he among your friends? Or was he someone in your family?
Response. Tamok was in the same village as I am, and he also related to me. He was born in his home village, but grew up with his grandmother at the Chiang Tong village, Kiep commune. So I had not been very closely related to him back then. When he was a monk, I was still at a very young age. I had not been in close contact with him. Only after he left his monkhood that I been very close to him, doing farming together.
So you frequently spoke to him. Did he educate you in terms of political doctrine, in terms of the political doctrine of the Communist Party of Cambodia?
Response. After the Geneva Convention, he quitted the Isaac movement and lived in the community as ordinary person, but he tried to explain and convince one another. I convinced him based on Buddhism when he convinced me on his doctrine. However, we were adamant. We were not easily convinced. However, at later date, when he had more power, I was convinced. But still, my belief, my background in Buddhism would never be convinced. I still am superior to him in terms of this.
Did he tell you if there were enemies to the revolution, and who were these enemies?
Response. He talked based on the communist theory. He said anyone opposed the communists are our all enemies.
And was this something that he implemented, according to you? on the base of what you might have seen, on the base of your experience?
Witness, could Your Honor repeat the question, please?
Yes, if I understood properly what you said that Tomok, or according to Tomok, anyone who was opposed to the revolution was an enemy. Did he tell you what you were supposed to do with these enemies? Were you obliged to implement a certain kind of policy in relation to the enemy?
Response. He said, enemies who opposed us had to be attacked, and we had to attack one another. That's what he emphasized.
And concretely speaking, what did this mean? What were the consequences of these directives?
Response. There was no influence of such a thing on me in person. However, it was in the case of other people, because he could convince a lot of people until he could take control or hold a position of authority during the 3-year period. And I was not given any authority, but I was engaged in this circle.
So I will be a bit more specific. So according to you, when Tomok said to you, you had to attack the enemies, did it mean that you had to eliminate them, kill them, eliminate them physically, that is to say?
Response. When it comes to attack, mean fighting, mean grabbing power from one another. So when I was referring to the attack, it means fighting, means striving for power.
Now another question, witness, regarding Nunchia. You explained during your questioning by the OCIJ that you had met Nunchia, that you were in Phnom Penh then, and that Nunchia was looking for traditional musical instruments. And you also said that you met Nunchia through Tamok. Can you tell us when you met Nunchia for the first time? And what did Tamok tell you regarding Nunchia?
Response. I did not meet Nunchia through Tamok. Tamok was not there when I met him. But Nunchia knew where I worked. He stopped his car there and asked me about the musical instruments and asked me to look for them.
So if I understood correctly, Nunchia came to see you because Tamok told him to come to see you.
Response. It was not from Tamok, it was from the musicians that gathered by Tamok to work for a radio station. Tamok gathered these musicians and they reported to Nuon Chea about this. These musicians were transported from Takao upon order from Tamok. So I can say that these musicians were sent from Tamok and they reported to Nuon Chea asking about these musical instruments. That's why Nuon Chea approached me.
So now let me get to the last question that I asked you, which concerns your responsibilities in Phnom Penh. And we understood that you were part of an economic unit that depended on the southwest zone. So concretely speaking, who were your superiors? Was Tamok your superior, or was it the Ministry of Commerce, or was it both?
Response. The commerce for the zone was in charge or under the direct order from Tamok. Tamok was the head.
And did Tamok interact with the Ministry of Commerce through you, or did he interact directly with the Ministry of Commerce? How were things organized?
Response. The state warehouse had sections in the southwest zone, and if materials had to be delivered, then there would be letters of authorization to transport the materials. Except the materials that had to go through request, that the zone would make such a request. If the normal or the routines delivery of materials, then there would only be stated in the letters of authorization.
I would like to understand a bit more specifically what you're saying. You spoke to us about Office K22. Who was heading Office K22, and what was this person's role?
Response. Sen was my nephew by marriage, who was the head of K22. When I asked more, he said he was working with Khieu Samphan. I don't know what his function or authority was.
So, is this the nephew you were speaking about earlier when you said that in an informal manner you had tried to contact Khieu Samphan and to inform him of the needs of the population of Kandal province? Is this the same nephew you're referring to, the Sang who was at the head of K22?
Response. His full name is Son Sen. I cannot say he was the head, however, but he was my nephew by marriage, and I contacted him directly, and he reported to the upper echelon.
So, on the case file, we have a certain number of documents that were produced already before the chamber. This is document E3/1 1236, E3/1232, and E3/1228. These documents are reports, weekly reports, that apparently come from the Ministry of Commerce and that describe or that list the quantities that would come in and come out of the warehouses, out of the state warehouses, as well as the quantities of rice. You speak here about paddy, sticky paddy, rice, and different qualities of rice and sugar. And I note that on this document there is the date of the decision. I don't know if it's a decision to authorize products coming in or leaving the warehouse. And beyond the date, we often see the reference K22. So my question is, did any product leaving, and rice in particular, the state warehouse, had to be approved by K22?
Response: I do not know things happen under the state supervision. I have no idea about this because I worked at the zone.
Yes, but earlier on you said that when you had to transport supplies from the state warehouse to the provinces, you were required to have a permit or a letter allowing you or allowing the warehouse to have these products supplied. So who was the person producing this letter? Who gave you the permission?
Response: some were from K22. I do not remember the person who signed on the letters. I never take a good notice of the letters because the drivers would just pick the letters and presented them to people concerned so that materials were allowed to be loaded and delivered. So I could not remember the signatures and names, and it was part of routines and I took it for granted.
And the person in charge of the warehouse, was it Comrade Rong?
Response: this person is Rương, not Rươn.
Pardon. Apologies. Were there many warehouses in Phnom Penh? And in the warehouses, was there only rice or anything else?
Response: I don't remember how many, but I believe that there were many, and I don't know what else was stored in the warehouses. But those who were in charge of transporting the goods or materials would be the drivers who carried with them the letters of authorization. But I do not know where the warehouses were located. I just don't remember exactly where each warehouse located.
Did you ever organize the delivery of rice from these state warehouses to Kampong Saum?
Response. Only when transportation was meant to be to the zone that the zone was in charge. If it was to be delivered, if the goods or materials had to be delivered to the province, in particular Kampong Sam, then the state section would be in charge. And there were also trains that could be used to transport those materials. I think when it comes to the delivery of materials to Kampong Sam or back to Phnom Penh, it was under the supervision of the state, not the zone.
Yeah. So your role, therefore, was strictly limited to transporting from the southwest zone to Phnom Penh and from Phnom Penh to the southwest zone. That's all. Is that correct?
Bad.
Response. Yes, it is correct.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
The President, thank you. Without any further questions from the fellow judges of the bench, we would like to hand over to counsels for Mr. Nuon Chea to proceed with their questions if they wish to do so.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before I proceed with our questions, I would like to say something in support of what the counsel for Ieng Sary has said earlier this afternoon about the transcriptions. The transcription we received of the interview the witness gave in 2009. And I'm talking about document D166/183.1. I compared the first 4 pages of the transcription with the original interview, the summary, which is in the file, the written record of the witness interview. And I must say I'm quite shocked about the comparison, about the level of the interview, the way the interview was conducted and the way the interview was summarized. It is difficult to describe what happened as an interview. It's more chaotic than that. It is like a conversation between one investigator and the witness, and it is so chaotic that as a result it is practically impossible to reconstruct what information came from the witness and what information was fed to the witness by the investigator. And the other problem with which occurs is that the summary itself, I'm not talking about the way the interview was carried out, but the summary itself is also inaccurate, if not misleading. It is in fact not a summary, but what I would call a highly personal interpretation of what I described as a chaotic conversation. And I only compared 4 pages with a very short passage in the written interview. As a result, we submit that this written record, although it does not contain much relevant information about our client, although it is admitted and put before the chamber, it cannot be relied upon. I don't think that any weight can be attributed to this particular written record. As we submit, it is simply too unreliable. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second point I wanted to make is, or a question I had, is whether the trial chamber has decided on our request, Rule 87 request we filed on the 19th of July, and which has been given number E210, without a decision on this particular request, in which we ask, or in which we put 2 new documents before the chamber, we cannot continue. So I'm awaiting instructions from the bench.
The President, Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Your Honours, briefly in response to that application, we disagree with our learned friend. What we have, as I indicated earlier, is a short excerpt from a longer interview. The witness statement, of course, is a summary. It is difficult to assess exactly the accuracy, particularly as my friend did with only 4 pages of what would be a much longer document. But more to the point, perhaps, we've all listened to the witness here today and yesterday, and I think when you look at the record, I think it stands. Its accuracy, by and large, is confirmed by the witness. Witnesses that testify to important matters are brought before the chamber so they can give more comprehensive evidence and so they can be examined, and that's exactly what happened here. We heard additional evidence on a number of matters, but I do not think that a submission that the summary is inaccurate or inconsistent or biased stands at this point. If anything, it's largely consistent with what the witness has said in court.
The President, I would like to give the floor to Judge Cartwright to respond to the query and issues raised by the Defense Counsel for Nguyen Chi.
Well, thank you, President. In relation to document E210, the trial chamber received this yesterday. There is no need for the Nguyen Chi defence team to reiterate its regular objections to the Chamber's ruling. We fully understand your concerns. In relation to this document, however, when you advise the Chamber if any of the documents that you wish to use in examining this witness, whether any of those documents have been put before the Chamber or are in any party's lists, then we will rule on this matter. That is a matter for you to do the research on, and we await that information. You may be able to give it to us immediately. Thank you, Mr. Pestman.
As you know, Your Honours, we have no list, so these documents are certainly not on our list. I believe that one of those documents was on the list produced by the prosecutor, and the other one wasn't. But as you know, we have consistently taken the position that it's not relevant whether this document is on a list, so we don't feel obliged to provide the trial chamber with this information.
Judge Cartwright, yes, proceed.
You have been directed to comply with the ruling and to inform the Chamber whether the documents you wish to use have been put before the Chamber or are in any party's list. The Chamber is well aware that the Nguyen Chi defence has not supplied comprehensive lists of documents. Thank you. Are you able to give this information immediately, because I do not want to keep doing your research for you or to ask the other parties to do so?
Your Honour, IS 19.200 is on the list produced by the prosecutor, and the other one isn't. So IS 19.203 is not on the list, or on any list.
Judge Cartwright, please proceed.
Thank you. In that case, you may refer to document IS 19.200, but not to IS 19.203. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honour. I could hear what you were saying, but not through my headphones. This is the third headset that has refused.
Can you hear me across the courtroom without that assistance, Mr. Pestman?
No.
Mr. Pestman, can you hear me without that assistance? You may refer to IS 19.200, but not to IS 19.203.
Thank you, Your Honour. I understood even without the help of my headphones. I wish to note that these documents should be seen together, and I do not wish to deal only with one document. I want to cross-examine this particular witness on the basis of both documents, which support each other and which, in our view, contain important exculpatory information. And we are now barred from using that information to cross-examine this witness. So I'm forced to give the floor to the Kyo Sampan team, and we'll try to submit this evidence again, and hopefully we'll be allowed to do so next time.
Thank you, Counsel, for clearly stating your position. The floor is now given to Ieng Sari's defense team to put question to this witness. And we're done. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good afternoon, learned colleagues and everyone in and around the courtroom. Good afternoon, Mr. Kiuno. My name is Angodam, the co-defense counsel for Ieng Sari. At this juncture, I do not intend to put any question to you. On behalf of Ieng Sari, I thank you for providing the testimony to this court in ascertaining the truth. And I wish you a safe journey back home. Thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you. We would now execute the floor through Kyo Sampan's defense team to put question to this witness. You may proceed. Counsel for Kyo Sampan. Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Through hearing the testimony of this witness, he clearly states his position, and we, the defense team for Kyo Sampan, do not have any question to be put to him. President, thank you, Counsel. Mr. Kiuno, the proceeding to hear your testimony has concluded now. We thank you very much for your valuable time to testify during these 2 days with patience and best effort as part of your contribution to ascertaining the truth in this case. You are now excused, and you can return to your residence or wherever you wish, and we wish you a safe journey. Court officer, could you assist the witness with the visual section for his returning to his residence? The proceeding today has come to almost to an end. However, before the adjournment, the Chamber would like to issue the following warning. During the proceeding in case 002/01, the Chamber has observed a consistent pattern of misconduct by the Nuon Chea defense, and in particular by the international members of the team. This misconduct has included, but not been limited to, willful violation of the Chamber's orders and authorized disclosure to the press of confidential or strictly confidential material, and statements in court which are disrespectful of the court or which otherwise do not accord with the recognized standards and ethics of the legal profession. In consequence, the Chamber provides notice that these and other examples of misconduct will be brought to the attention of the relevant national bar associations for appropriate action pursuant to Internal Rule 38. The trial chamber also issues a formal warning in accordance with Internal Rule 38(1) and notes that it may invoke the procedures set out in that rule independently of any action taken by individual bar associations. The proceeding today has come to an end. The court will recess and reconvene on the 16th of August 2012, rather July 2012, starting from 9 a.m. We will hear the testimony of expert David Chandler on that day. Security guards were instructed to bring the three accused back to the detention center and have them back here on Monday, the 16th of July 2012, before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.
Sure.